This video brought to you by Park Candy. That's right, I'll say it again, Park Candy. One more time. Nah, I'm just kidding. Twice is enough. Visit parkcandy.com and use offer code OFFHAND to get 10% off of your entire purchase. That being said, I have a bad, spooky feeling about the end of this video. You know, more and more these days, I feel like we all get caught up in the living with the lands and the people movers of the world that we don't take time to acknowledge those who came before, those who put us in the position that we're in. Now, I love to talk about living with the land and the people mover and Disneyland, but you know, what made this channel what it is today was absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, the Haunted Mansion. My favorite Disney attraction of all time. I ham it up, you know, with Living with the Land sometimes, but the Haunted Mansion will always and forever be my favorite. And this weekend is stirring something spooky within me, so I figured why not talk about the attraction, the Disneyland and Walt Disney World versions, and what we may have been missing this entire time, what we may not have been seeing. It's right in front of our very eyes. Now imagine, if you will, for a second, me, offhand Disney, entering the Magic Kingdom on a very, very hot summer's day. Imagine, if you will, the sound of the trams going by, the heat emanating from the concrete below you, and the signs of the villains as they go by. I can almost see it now.
Welcome aboard our villains courtesy tram. I say villains because you parked your car in Star from the Lion King, either 420 or 421. If you visit, I do suggest taking one on the way there and one on the way back to get that best Disney transportation experience. Where we drop you off is where we will pick you up. So if you park your car in Star from the Lion King 420 or 421, you are honorary villains today.
Friends, it is a very, very hot day here in Central Florida, and we are headed into the Magic Kingdom from the Transportation and Ticket Center. Still haven't decided on whether we're gonna hit the boat or the monorail. We'll figure that out here in a second, but I'll show you why we're headed in right now. Thank you, Past Alan. Wow, what a handsome man. Have you ever been riding the Haunted Mansion at either Disneyland, Walt Disney World, Tokyo Disney? It really doesn't matter. Any Haunted Mansion, anywhere in the world, even Phantom Manor, and you've been noticing maybe some eyes, some gazes being thrown your way while you're walking down the halls or riding down the halls in your doom buggy. Eyes and faces that follow you throughout the mansion, sometimes carved into the very walls of the house itself. Hidden faces in the Haunted Mansion. Wow, that was a beautiful shot, Future Dallin. Thank you. You're welcome. We're heading in to talk about the Haunted Mansion today. There's a film coming up, but we're not talking about the film today. We're talking about the attraction itself and what I love, monorail yellow, about the Haunted Mansion. Something specific, something that you don't find in a lot of other Disney attractions. Headed in. Oh good, we made it. Now, so I know we were talking about going to the Haunted Mansion and everything, right? But what is a Magic Kingdom style park without a railroad? The answer to that question is Shanghai Disneyland, but we have to ride a railroad, the Walt Disney World Railroad in this case.
Stops along the way in Frontierland and Fantasyland.
Ah yes, who could forget the Walt Disney World Railroad? Now, while Past Alan enjoys his little gallivant around the park, I need to discuss with you all watching this video right now what I mean by faces in the Haunted Mansion. And it actually all starts back during the early development phases of the original attraction, specifically with the artwork of one Rolly Crump. Now, a little bit of a primer for those of you who don't know. Back during the development of the Haunted Mansion, it went through so many different story iterations with Bloodmere Manor and Captain Gore, and then eventually the retirement/party home for ghosts from all over the world that the Imagineers landed on. And one day, after walking through the WED workshops and checking up on the mansion project, Walt Disney came across Rolly's showcase. which featured Rolly's strange, occultic, and surrealistic art pieces. The next day, Walt came up to Rolly and told him that he had been kept up, awake, all night, thinking about Rolly's showcase and how his pieces needed their own place to be displayed in the parks, maybe alongside the mansion. Since ghosts from all over the world were retiring to the Haunted Mansion, why not have their artifacts accompany them for the trip? And thus, the Museum of the Weird was born. Originally just sort of a foyer area adjacent to the Haunted Mansion where you could view these artifacts and read their fake history, but eventually evolving into its own walkthrough attraction, a sort of sister attraction to the Haunted Mansion. Now, these artifacts could be creepy or cool depending on who you asked. Personally, I love this wax candle man. This was designed by Radley Relics on Twitter. You can find him. He makes amazing sculptures just like this one. And the wax candle man has always had sort of a soft spot in my heart. It's such a missed opportunity that this guy never made it into the mansion. And eventually, after Walt Disney's death and his passing, the Museum of the Weird was scrapped and the mansion attraction itself was built, but the foyer off to the side never ended up seeing the light of day. But some say, me specifically being some, that if you keep a weather eye out and you know your surroundings and you observe the details, you can still find pieces of the Museum of the Weird and faces in the Haunted Mansion. Does the topic of the video make sense now? You know, it's something that occurred to me a while ago, and I was like, well, I want to make a video on this, but I'm not in the parks right now, and I'd want to have to get this very specific footage of the Haunted Mansion, and I didn't have the footage ready, and now I'm here, and I figured, it's 105 degrees outside, may as well ride the Haunted Mansion over and over and over and over again to get the footage that I needed. So that's why we came here to Liberty Square. Right behind me there you have the Liberty Bell, but right in front of me we have the Haunted Mansion, which is my destination for the rest of the evening. Right there, as we go up and down the docks, you can see, peeking over the hedge, peeking over that building, the Haunted Mansion. Now this observation goes all the way back to the pre-Disneyland, pre-Haunted Mansion Disneyland days, back to Rolly Crump and the Museum of the Weird. This is not the Haunted Mansion, this is the gift shop, Memento Mori. But right here is a wonderful example. You see some faces on this wallpaper sweatshirt. Faces on this suit jacket. And kind of a face on this container. You see eye, mouth. No, just me? Okay. Now, as we all know, when the Haunted Mansion was being developed, dreamed about, thought about, that it went through many different iterations. The Bloodmere Manor, Captain Gore's mansion, and of course the Museum of the Weird, designed by the late Rolly Crump. And something fascinating about the Museum of the Weird is that most everything included in a lot of the sketches has some sort of face on it, or is almost inanimate in some way. It feels like it would be a living thing. This clock right here, this chair, obviously, many objects from Rolly's concept art seem to have faces, and that's something that carried over to the full mansion when it opened in 1969 in Disneyland, and 2 years later in 71 here at Walt Disney World. Now, how hot is it? Yes. So we are going to go inside the mansion, and I'm going to point out to you different things that have faces, the significance of some of those things, and where you can find them. Because interestingly enough, almost everything in this mansion can be tied back to 1, 2, 3, or 4 Imagineers. Rolly Crump, Claude Coates, Mark Davis, Leota Toombs. There's a couple extra. Exitencio, the icons. It's a little Bluebeard reference for those of you who have read that story. Classic. But I guess that's enough of me just talking about nothing. I think it's time we head inside the mansion. And actually, I showed you what I meant. I'll also be joined now from the future by voiceover Dallin. Go ahead and take it away, friend. Best ride at Walt Disney World? It's pretty close between this, People Mover, and Tron. For me, at least. I understand Tron is a touchy subject for some. Unfortunately, with this, I don't think we'll be able to go see the extended queue. I think it might be closed off. And while, yes, we didn't make it through the extended queue, I had my Genie Plus ready for the day, we did find our first face. Not even inside the mansion yet. But one of my favorites, of course, is right here in the foyer, a Walt Disney World exclusive, the Embers of the Dying Fire, the grating around which, yes, looks like a face. Now, we will see another face very similar to this one on the actual attraction, but for now, admire that. The 2 eyes and then the mouth, obviously down by the wooden logs. But then, unfortunately, when it comes to the stretching room, yes, we do have the gargoyles and the portraits, but those are living creatures, right? Gargoyles designed kind of on bats, I guess? What is this thing? And then, of course, the humans in the portraits. Not really any hidden faces I could find in the stretching room, oddly enough. But the next room we go through, Disneyland and Disney World, are both full of them.
Consider this dismaying observation. This chamber has no windows and no doors, which offers you this chilling challenge to find a way out. Of course, there's always my way.
Specifically in the changing portrait hallway at Disneyland or the Sinister 11 room before you get into your Doom buggies at Walt Disney World, you can see the wooden paneling alongside the walls actually has skulls carved into it. And that's not even to mention the doors. Who could forget? Now I'm going to use this piece from who else but Radley Relics to sort of go more in-depth on the door. It's a very well lit picture here, and you can actually see it, which is very good for a visual medium like YouTube. So first you have these little guys worked into the wood paneling on the wall that I was talking about earlier. Here's a shot of them in the actual mansion. It's a little better lit there. But also below them you have a larger, sort of more elongated skull. And of course, as I was referring to earlier, the grating on top of the door is a very angry face, sort of similar to the fireplace one that we encountered earlier in the mansion. This appears in both the Corridor of Doors scene and various doors throughout the Changing Portrait hallway and the Sinister 11 gallery? I say it like that because I am unsure. It's the final shuffle to our graves. Keep in mind, this isn't going to be a full walkthrough of the actual attractions. This is just all the faces I could find on a couple ride-throughs. Of course, you have more paneling as you go deeper and deeper into the mansion, but then things start getting a bit more overt, a bit more in your face, a bit more duck-themed, if you know what I'm talking about. Now, like the gargoyles and the stretching portraits, the faces of the busts I don't think really count. They're people. They're not really hidden. Now, what does count is the iconic living wallpaper. The wallpaper with faces, eyes staring back at you. You can find this everywhere in the Haunted Mansion and outside the Haunted Mansion on merchandise, phone cases, even my Apple Watch band is the Haunted Mansion wallpaper. It's a great design. And of course, the design for the wallpaper comes from the one, the only Rolly Crump. And when asked about it, he says, "When someone told me they liked the designs I did for the wallpaper, I said, 'What designs? What wallpaper?' I didn't know what the hell they were talking about." What an absolute legend. And here's a funny story about Rolly's art and Walt. This comes from an interview with Hunker. He says, "I had a show in the library at the Disney studio, and that show was marijuana posters. The illustrations on display there were like old-timey advertisements for pot. One read, 'Imported by Stoned & Co.' When he heard that Walt Disney himself had wandered into his gallery, Crump panicked. 'Oh my god, did he read the posters?' he wondered. 'Yes,' said the woman running the library, and he laughed." That's actually kind of hilarious. Those might not have been tobacco cigarettes he was smoking at Disneyland. And inspired by Rolly's sketch of a plant man for the Museum of the Weird, see faces, Claude Coates came up with the final design for the wallpaper used in the mansion to this day. Okay, got a bit sidetracked there. It's a really interesting story. Moving on to the Donald Duck chair. Yes, that Donald Duck chair. Right to the left of the endless hallway scene, here obscured by darkness, but here's a better photograph of it, you can see a chair with, yes, another hidden face. Now, me personally, I can see it. I never really thought of it as the Donald Duck chair, but you can see sort of like his little hat there, his beak, his eyes. I guess in a way it could be Donald if Donald had two massive ears on the side of his head. But obviously this chair is a reference to the living chair that was going to be featured, yes, in the Museum of the Weird, that actually was going to be an animatronic and would speak to people as they walked past, or tried to sit on him, I guess. And then of course after this we ride past the coffin and into the Corridor of Doors, which as mentioned earlier, the doors have faces, the walls have faces, everything has a face, everything's looking at you. Especially security, there are cameras everywhere in the mansion. Wait a minute, I was getting sidetracked again. What was I just pointing at? Yeah, that's right. How could I have forgotten? The pillars! Now, in my opinion, the pillars were the most difficult part of this video to film. They appear in front of the coffin and in the grand hall, which is why I'm playing the same footage over and over again. But if you look closely, you can see that the pillars form the face of an animal, maybe a lion or perhaps the hellhound we see later on in the attraction in the graveyard. And one thing I always thought was interesting is the columns in the grand hall, or the ballroom scene, I don't care what you call it, I've called it both many times, are actually the frames around the glass panel that makes the Pepper's ghost illusion seem real, it makes it work. Next time you're on the balcony of the grand hall, make sure you look at those animal faces in the pillars and you can kind of see right next to the animal faces, actually, the pane of glass. If you ever need help like visualizing the illusion, just look for the animal faces. They'll help you find that invisible wall that creates holograms, allegedly. Nah, it's just lights and glass. It's really kind of simple. Now, do not think that I forgot about the demon clock. I think this is the most obvious Rolly Crump face in the entire attraction. The whole point of the clock is to look like a demon. That's why it's called the demon clock. It's not really hidden, but it is a face on an inanimate object that did stem from the Museum of the Weird, so I have to include it. Plus, I got this amazing footage of it when the ride stopped. Here is the earliest form that the demon clock takes in this concept art, in a piece known as the Grandfather Coffin Clock. Not really a face on the clock, more of a face in the clock, I guess. This image from the special where Walt is showing off all of the concepts for the Haunted Mansion, Rolly holds a slightly different version. Now, instead of the devil's head, it's more of a zombie ghoul head. You can see it here along with a who's who of other things meant for the Museum of the Weird, like the Candleman and the chair and that thing. I will say that of all of the hidden faces on the Haunted Mansion, the clock is definitely my favorite. There is one other in the running that we have not reached yet, but there's not too much to talk about in the attic scene. There's a lot of details in here, a lot of props and a lot of story being told, not too many hidden faces. The ride is very much front-loaded with the faces, with the Museum of the Weird references. Now this attic scene's a bit different, okay? I have the whole dune buggy to myself, so I can talk slightly louder than usual. Remember to be respectful though. I don't see too many faces of animals or like even worked into the photo frames here.
Playful spooks have interrupted our tour. Please remain seated.
Oh, now I'm spooked. Now I'm scared. But as we fall or are pushed out of the attic window, we arrive at the graveyard scene. But before we go too deep into it, I want you to take a look at the gates above you and behind you. It is so hard to get a shot of this dang face. Photo or video doesn't matter. It's so dark in there. It's behind you and above you at the same time, and if you don't look, you'll miss it. But there, on the top of the gates, next to the caretaker, right before you get into the graveyard scene, is a face peering out at you from the darkness. This one is another, just because it's so hard for me to spot. I never knew about this either until I was just observing the ride one day and noticed the face up there. So I feel like I sort of like discovered it, even though it's been there since, 1969. It's one of the very few things in the mansion that I discovered for myself. I didn't read about this face in a book or see it on a video or in a news article. I had no idea this was here until I saw it. That's why it's in the running for one of my favorite faces in the mansion. But it is here, my friends, where we arrive at the bad news. Remember when I said that the attraction is basically front-loaded with all of the hidden faces? I think, I could be wrong. Comment also if I'm wrong. I think the graveyard gates are the last instance of a hidden inanimate face in the mansion. Now, an honorable mention for this video would be the sconces at the end of the attraction, the ghoul arms reaching out of the wall, holding the torches, lighting your way back to New Orleans / Liberty Square. Seriously, these sconces are so cool. I want them in my office. They're so awesome. But that's just it, they're arms. They're not faces, hence why they are honorable mentions. I shouldn't have to explain this. You've been watching. All right, back to Sweaty Past Me. Now, that ride seems really front-loaded with the faces. You know what I mean? Like, toward the end in the graveyard and the attic, it's not much. Ah, okay, so you didn't have that much to add. His shirt was kind of cool, though. Wait, that gives me an idea. Real quick, before that, though, the reason I wanted to make this video, not just because of what's happening this weekend, I wanted to call attention to the amount of detail and love that Disney puts into their attractions. Not just back in 1969 with the Haunted Mansion, but carrying forward to this very day with rides like Runaway Railway and even Rise of the Resistance. These rides are so richly detailed, especially with all the faces in the mansion. They didn't have to be in there. Not a lot of people notice them, but when you do, it helps build the environment and the atmosphere that much more. But even more than that, I wanted to pay my respect to a hilarious, genius, extremely talented artist who I had the honor of meeting once at one little interview with. An amazing man, Crump, the man behind the faces of the mansion. We lost a real legend, and I just wanted to make a video paying my respects to that. There's no joke here. Rolly was just a great guy. That being said, though, this shirt is amazing. Where did we get this? What do you mean, where did we get them? I told you at the beginning, this video was sponsored by Park Candy. ParkCandy.com, offer code offhand, ring any bells? Okay, here we go. No, I need a different one. I can't do this. This one doesn't work at all. This is the one. That will be the one. Hey, button up. Oh my God, again? Oh, hey man, just checking out the Haunted Mansion plaque on the wall. Pretty cool looking, huh? Have you just been standing there? Have you eaten today? How many hours has it been? Did you just steal a bunch of shirts from a random guy at the Polynesian resort? No, I just happen to have a bunch of shirts that are tiki related from Park Candy. Oh, that's right. Park Candy, they're the sponsor. How did you get those shirts? It's pretty self-explanatory. You just got to go to the link in the description of this video or parkcandy.com and use offer code offhand at checkout to save 10%. That's how I afford all of these shirts. But they gotta have more than just button-up shirts, right? They gotta have, I don't know, Disney-themed blankets that you could use to cuddle up on the couch with your boys, watch some offhand Disney videos, or maybe even a bottle opener shaped like a bottle. That way you could open your bottle with your bottle. It's quite the paradox, but they pull it off. All right, well, if it's all the same to you, I'm gonna head out. I'm gonna use these bottle openers shaped like bottles to open my bottle. Just remember to make sure to remind the people to use offer code offhand at checkout to save 10% off of their order. Hey, I was supposed to say that. You can't steal my line like that. All right, see ya. No, just dropped the shirt. That guy's the worst. Now, as I mentioned before the advertisement, did I miss a couple of faces? May I have missed a couple? Probably. In fact, I'm pretty sure I did. But let this be a lesson to you that no matter how many times you've been around the Haunted Mansion on your trusty doom buggy, you may have missed something. There are so many details packed into this attraction. The attic scene alone is just full of props that I could spend all day talking about. And whenever you're gazing into the dark abyss of the mansion, something or someone may be staring back. And that is where I'm choosing to end this week's video, because I think I covered all the faces. I'm 99% sure I got them all. Yeah, you probably didn't, buddy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the end card for this week's video. How cool is that you made it to the ending? The names that you see scrolling by on the left-hand sort of portion of your screen, those are the names of all of my lovely supporters over at patreon.com/offhanddisney. And actually, if you stay tuned until the end of this video and you are a Patreon supporter, know that I will be giving away all 3 of those bottle openers to my $5 tier patrons, the green tier. Registration for this sort of contest, or giveaway, I suppose, will close on Monday the 31st. That way I have a list of the green tier patrons. So if you want a chance of getting a nice little bottle opener, again, green tier patrons, be there, be square, both. And you know what, if you're not interested in that, that's fine too. Even just $1 a month will get you access to most of the perks, like early access to this video. They actually all got to see it before you all viewing here on YouTube. So if that sounds interesting to you, they really do help keep this channel going, and I am very thankful to them. You can also follow me on my other social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. I guess Twitter is X now. Someone's got to help that guy out. And if you enjoyed this video, you want more videos like this video about the Haunted Mansion, please be sure to hit the like button. If you're new around here, be sure to hit the subscribe button. We would love to have you in the future for whatever videos come next. The Haunted Mansion movie is coming out this weekend, and I wanted to do a Haunted Mansion themed video. It's not getting great reviews. I am very worried about it. And I do want to do another Haunted Mansion video actually in the future about the timelines, the different universes that the Haunted Mansion takes place in. Yeah? That should get you on the hook. That'll be a nice little teaser for you there. Everybody, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Goodbye.